So quite a few people have requested that I take a look at this one. It's a Suede classic from the early 1990s, features some lovely guitar work from Bernard Butler. And Bernard Butler, I think, one of my favourite guitar players from that kind of era. I suppose you could describe it as the Britpop era, though a lot of people seem to hate that term these days. And there were a lot of great guitar players around about that kind of a time, but Bernard's certainly amongst my favourites there. And today I'm going to break down how the song is played. I was actually preparing this video and I came across another video on YouTube where Mr. Butler himself is teaching you how to play this song. So I'm hoping that that doesn't make my video completely pointless and redundant. It wouldn't be the first time I've made one of those kind of videos, I suppose, but I'm going to try and go into a little bit more detail than he does, and there are a couple of bits in the song that he doesn't cover in that video. So I hope you find this interesting. I'm going to begin by playing through a bit of the song for you, and then I'll break it down. Okay, so this song I think came out in 93, 94, something like that. It was on the first Suede album. And I like Suede. I'm not a Suede mega fan. I remember going out and buying those first two records and really liking them. But I've not really sort of kept up with what Suede have been doing recently. I know they've put out a lot of records. Apparently the last couple of records are really good, but I've yet to investigate those. Maybe I should do that soon. But I do have a lot of fondness for those first two Suede records, and they're full of great guitar playing. And I think one of the points that I want to make in this video, beyond just teaching you how to play a cool song, is about the importance of coming up with great guitar parts. And that's something that Bernard Butler does so well, and all of his parts are memorable and interesting and melodic. And I think in this particular song the guitar parts are probably better, or at least on a par with the lead vocals of the song. They're kind of real important hooks to the tune. So let's jump in. I'm going to teach you how to play this song one section at a time, and then towards the end of the video I'm going to talk gear, and I'll take you through the equipment that I'm using, and I'm going to talk about how you might get close to the kind of sound that you're hearing on this record. We're in the key of B minor for this one, at least the verses are in B minor. Then for the chorus it goes to the relative major of D major, so that's quite a classic songwriting device. You switch to the chorus and it's got that kind of uplifting feeling where you go to the relative major. And the chords for the introduction and for the verse, the basic harmony is the same, and the basic chords for the whole song actually are pretty straightforward. But what is interesting is the way that Bernard takes those basic chords and comes up with some memorable parts. So the basic chords for the introduction and for the verse of the song are just B minor, A, G, and E minor, very straightforward. And he says this in the video, you know, one approach would just be to strum your way through those chords. You know? And nothing necessarily wrong with doing that, but it's much more interesting to kind of craft an interesting part. So the intro part is this. We've got so you can see he's taken those basic chords, but just added a little kind of internal melody, I suppose, and made it a bit more interesting. So we're starting with the B minor shape here. It's just a bar chord at the 2nd fret. But if you lift up your 2nd finger, you get that note in there. So it's a B sus2, I think, is the official name for that chord. And we're just going, lifting that the 2nd finger rather, and then putting it down again. And you've got this little melody which is just taken through the chord changes. So you can do that on the B minor. The same thing on the A chord. So if you play your A chord with the 1st finger, you can put down that D note there to create an A sus4. And then you can do the same thing on a G. So here I'm just playing the root note of the G, muting the A string, open strings, and then you can put your 1st finger down again on this. It's this C sharp to D move. Then we're going to E minor. That's the 1st time round. Then we're going to B minor again, and this time we've got, so playing the B minor like this. I'm taking this from the video, so I'm not barring all the way across. Playing the top 4 strings, and you want to bring out the melody there, so it's the top note and then the 2nd string, then back to A, and then the G and E minor. So that's the basic part. I'm playing mostly with downstrokes here. A lot of this song is downstrokes. You want to kind of dig in and play fairly aggressively, but sometimes you've got these quick down ups in there, often between the chord changes, and you've just got some open strings in there as well. So and yeah, I forgot this bit here. We've got this little connecting bit here. So on the B string and then a G, that's what takes the riff round again. Then we go to the B minor. You can actually hear on the recording there are lots of layers of guitar on this. I don't know how many guitars are on there, but it sounds like quite a lot. One of the guitars is just doing that kind of strumming part. That's what Bernard Butler does when he plays the song live. But you can hear some other guitars just bringing out that melody. I think there's probably a 12-string guitar in there. You can hear it just going at this point. Playing some more melodic stuff. So yeah, that's the intro with a bit of distortion. It sounds like this. Onto the verse then. It's the same basic chords, but the part has now changed, and we've got this. So starting on the B minor, what we're doing is we're splitting the chord. We've got the low strings and then the high strings. And in Bernard's tutorial video, he likens this to a drummer. You've got the low notes where the drummer would play the bass drum, the kick drum, and then you've got these high accents with the snare hit. So you've got that kind of... So just holding down that B minor chord, playing the lowest couple of notes in that chord, and then playing the highest couple of notes. So 1, 2, and then the same thing on the A. And the A chord that he's playing is this. So we've got open 2, 2, and then playing the 5th fret on the top 2 strings. It's kind of an A power chord technically, I suppose. So And I think important to pick this in the right way. I mean, for me, I can't remember if this is how he actually does it. If you play down on the low notes and then up on the high notes, if you're playing up on those high notes, it just helps them to pop out, I think. So then we got some single note stuff. So this is over the G to the E minor, and we've got just on the low E string to start with, open A, and then this idea. So hammer on from A to B, and then an open D. Goes round again. Little variation the second time, so it starts the same way. Then you've got pull off from E to D, open A string. Round again. The same riff as the first time, and the final time. So leading into the chorus with this. That's the basic verse part. I'll just put all of that together with the distortion sound. Moving on to the chorus, we've got another really great part. So we've got and once again, the basic chords of the chorus are very straightforward. It's just that kind of thing, but he's outlining those chords in kind of an interesting way. So the way I think about this part is we're going from a D to a G. You might like to think about these triad shapes. So you've got a D and then going to a G like that. I mean, he's not necessarily playing all of those notes in that shape, and then he's connecting those two shapes with this little kind of chromatic line on the third string. So A sharp and B. So you've got the D and then going up chromatically to the B. I think it's picking that note, a hammer on and then a slide, catching that high G and then coming down again. That kind of idea. I think the fingering is important here. So I'm taking this from the way that Bernard does it. So we're playing that D shape in first finger, second, sliding on the second, and then coming back again. We're pulling off to the first finger and sliding, and it's a little bit nerdy getting into these kind of details, but that kind of thing really does help with the flow of the riff, I think, if you do it that way. I mean, if you there might be some other possible fingerings, but you tend to kind of get into kind of some awkward stuff there. This is by far the smoothest way to do it, I think. So that's the basic idea, and he talks about, you know, again, digging in and playing quite aggressively there. You're not playing, you're playing it in that kind of dainty way. You want to dig in, and you've got some other notes in there. Perhaps you've got some muted strings. It just sounds a little bit more aggressive that way, I think. So that's our basic idea. Then we've got this. So we're coming up to the 7th position for some single note stuff, and you could think about the notes that he's using here as coming from the D major scale or the D major pentatonic scale, if you like. So we've got that kind of, if you know your caged system, you've got that kind of G form, and then in this position you've got your D major pentatonic scale, and we're really just noodling about that scale, and the exact part goes like this. We've got, so just on the middle two strings, kind of going up the scale, there's a little bend, and then coming down again. And then we've got this kind of hammer, and then over to the third string. And then we're back to this. And then the second time round, it changes. We've got... So we've got a B minor triad, 7th fret on the top 3 strings. Just hitting that note at the 10th fret on the top string. And then this is an A chord here. I'm just playing the top part of an A chord and putting my little finger down on this B. And then to end, we've just got C to, or rather F to C. So I'm playing my F like this, and then just moving those fingers over to create the C chord. So that's the chorus part. I'll put all of that together with the distortion. That sounds like this. Okay, what next? We've got the guitar solo, and it's a great solo, really kind of interesting, slightly weird sounding solo. And the basic idea it starts off with is this. We've got... So more of this kind of chromatic stuff here. We've got those same 3 notes that we had in the chorus of the song. I think the underlying harmony has now changed. We've got kind of... sounds something like that. So it's B minor, and you're playing that like in the verse, the low high to G, up to G sharp. Yeah, it could be G sharp minor there, and those are the basic chords. Underneath this, yes, it's almost got a kind of James Bondy type of sound to it. So we've got a double hammer on there, and over onto the top string, we've got F sharp, picking it twice, and then pulling off. And then it's repeating, but the note on the top string is just going up 1 fret at a time. So now we've got... It goes up again, and it goes down. So it's that little melody that you've got on top. So this is probably the most technical bit of the song, I think. So it's actually quite a good little finger exercise, this one. And I think you're going to have to use your little finger for that fourth fret note if you want it to sound smooth. And we're repeating that. And then we're off into some single note stuff, and this is more kind of I suppose it's kind of scaly noodling that we've got here. If you like, you can think about your B minor scale here. This is all played in the 2nd position. You've got your B minor scale there. He's really just playing around with those notes. So I'm not going to take you through every last note here, but I'll play it through slowly, and I hope you'll better get the gist. So we've got and then we're coming out of the solo with this. So it's kind of triad shapes here. Just arpeggiating this. It's like a G sharp major triad, going up 1 fret to A, and then another A triad shape here. So and I'm always banging on about triads in my videos, but they're important, kids. Even Bernard Butler knows his triad shapes. We've got sort of first inversion, second inversion, A major triads here. So that's the solo. Let me just play that with the distortion. I think seems to be some kind of flanger effect on the solo as well. So I'm going to add that. Here we go. So there's one more part to talk about, and that's in the outro of the tune. There's a final chorus. I think it's a double chorus. The first chorus he's playing the same part as we've already looked at, and then he's got a further little melody just in the fade out to the tune. And it's a little bit hard to hear what's going on the original recording. Lots of layers. It might be sort of multiple guitars sort of doing similar things, which makes it a bit hard to hear the exact part. So I'm going to show you what I think it is. I'm going to give you a few options here as well, but the basic part seems to be this. That's the idea. It's quite similar to the main chorus part. It's played in this position. It's really the D major scale in this position, and it's just a great melody, I think. There's nothing technical here. I think just listen to the recording and you'll be able to pick up the melody. Like that, kind of skip down an octave. And it ends with that same idea that we've had before. So that's the basic idea. I am detecting some other notes in there. So what I decided to do was something like this. Just at the start, I'm hearing this A note. It could be that another guitar is playing that, but you can play those two notes at the start. That just kind of thickens up the sound a little bit. What Bernard seems to do when he plays it live is play some thirds here. So you can play double stop, just to thicken up the sound. I mean, it's particularly important if you're playing live, if you're the only guitar player in the band. If you're just going, the danger there is that it could sound a little bit thin. So if you can thicken it up with some double stops, it's going to sound better, I think. So and then I think at one point it's kind of sliding up higher. And we've got some higher bending ideas, so just the 12th fret on the top string. And then back down here. And it kind of fades out. So you've got a few options there. That's just something for you to play around with. You can just do the single notes, or you can experiment with thickening that up with some thirds and some double stops, some sixths in there as well. So have a play around and see what you prefer the feel of and the sound of. Okay, let's talk gear. And there are some great guitar sounds on this tune, some quite unique things happening. And according to the man himself, this was done with a Les Paul through an AC30. And you've got to remember that in the 1990s, it was pre this sort of explosion of boutique effects pedals, and everybody these days seems to have a massive rig. But I think back in the 1990s, things were a lot simpler, and it was a lot better way, I think, to get unique sounds, if you ask me. And I think Bernard's setup was always quite minimal, and he was getting a lot of his tone from his fingers and the way he manipulates the controls on the guitar. So he talks about on the verse of this song, you've got that quite kind of brash cutting sound. That's the bridge pickup. And then for the chorus, it's kind of a mellower sound, but it's still very fuzzy. And for that, he's switching, I think, to the middle position on a Les Paul, or perhaps the neck pickup. I mean, either of those will work, just to give you a kind of more of a a kind of mellow tone for the chorus parts of this tune. And then a key part of the Bernard Butler sound is this kind of quite unique sort of fizzy, fuzzy distortion that he gets. And I'd assumed it was some kind of obscure vintage effects pedal, some kind of fuzz that he was using on this, but it turns out it's just the good old Boss Turbo Distortion, the DS2, which actually I've had one of these pedals years and years ago, and I thought it sounded terrible, and I ended up selling it. And of course I lived to regret that, and I had to go out and buy it again because I came to the conclusion that it does sound quite terrible, but it sounds bad in exactly the right kind of way, and it's got that kind of quite harsh glam rock or fizzy kind of fuzzy overdrive to it. So I had to go out and buy another one of these, and now I love it. I mean, it's not the right pedal for every situation. If you want just your natural bluesy overdrive sound, then it's probably not going to be the right pedal. But if you do want that kind of fizzy glam rock kind of fuzz distortion, then it's a really great sounding pedal. And Bernard talks about using the turbo distortion on the chorus to this song, so he stomps on that pedal and then he's got the middle position on the selector switch, so you've kind of got the mellower sound from the guitar with the harshness of that fuzz, and it's a really great sound. On the verses I'm not quite so sure. He says that he's not using the turbo distortion on the verse, but if you listen to the recording, it has got that kind of fizzy, fuzzy kind of sound. So I'm actually leaving the turbo distortion on when I'm playing the verse section of this tune, and I'm just playing with the pickup selector switch. So not sure what was going on the recording there, whether the verse is just the natural overdrive of an AC30, although with my AC30 you've got to turn it up really loud for it to overdrive, or maybe he's got another effects pedal in there as well. As far as the gear that I'm using today, I've got my Les Paul. It's a 59 reissue Les Paul, and my AC30, which I've got behind me, is actually still broken. I've not got round to having that fixed yet. I'm going to have to do that over the summer. So since I can't use that, I'm actually using my Fender Princeton today, just running that quite clean. And I've got a few pedals down here. I've got my Boss Turbo Distortion, which I had to go out and re-buy, and it does work so well for this song. So I was using that for the verse, the chorus, the solo. At the very start of the song, I was using my J-Rocket Archer overdrive just for a different quality of distortion. Then I switched that off and turned on the turbo distortion. As I said, I was playing around with the pickup selector in the different sections of the tune. And the other effect that you can hear quite prominently on the studio recording is some kind of flanger effect. So I switched that on for the solo. This is an old Boss BF2 flanger. I couldn't find online exactly what Bernard Butler uses flanger wise. Is it a flanger? Is it a phaser? I'm not exactly sure. It's some kind of swirly effect. I mean, on the recording it's possibly some kind of studio effect. I mean, the flange sound changes during the solo, and towards the end of the solo it almost becomes kind of synth like. It sounds like some kind of studio effect to me, but I'm not sure exactly what. But if you want to get close to that, any kind of flanger pedal should do it. I'm a fan of the Boss stuff. This is an old BF2, but I think there's probably a BF3 or 4, some more up-to-date flanger that you can get these days. Let's have some sounds then. So this is just the Les Paul going straight into the Princeton, no effects, so quite a clean sound. And then switch on the turbo distortion. And then if I just leave the turbo distortion on, change the pickup position, you've got the chorus sound. And then for the solo I was just adding in the flanger as well, and that sounds like this. That's all for this video. Hope you found it interesting. If you would like tab, that is going to be up on my Patreon page. It's the usual deal with that. You can pay what you like get access to this tab and my whole archive of other wonderful tabs. Should I look at some more Suede, some more Bernard Butler? Let me know. I can look at another Suede track, maybe a kind of a slightly more obscure, deeper cut, or I could look at some non-Suede Bernard Butler. If so, let me know if you've got any song ideas, and I'll do my best to look at one of those in the future. Thanks a lot for watching. See you next time.